doing your first scene, she had been doing moonsaults off the top rope.
Oh my God.
Had implants.
Look at no one thinks so. Why?
Why not?
I mean, I thought about it for a long while before I did it. I mean, I got a lot of uproar from the whole industry, but who are they to judge me?
Yeah, I mean, what are
I mean, they can all go to hell. They don't pay my bills.
No, you got a point.
And that's that.
Good evening, live from New York City. Woo! It's not SNL. Oh my God. No. If it was SNL, it'd be like way cooler because I'm sorry, what is SNL now? Is it like S&M or DEI? It's really boring now. Regardless. Hi, Jamal. How are you? Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. Okay. First and foremost, before we start this live stream, I just wanted to thank all the fans who came out this weekend to the wrestling shows. That little fire incident, hi Scott, that happened with the North Korean assassin really freaked me out. I got a couple of those packages out recently from Christian Cipollini, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I have one more of those El Mano Negro comics. I wasn't sure who that was supposed to go to, so if you're in the chat right now, let me know. Because I accidentally deleted the screenshots that had the addresses and stuff like that. It's been a weekend, man. So yeah, that fire this weekend, holy shit. So when you have fire spots in death matches, you are supposed to use Roncinol lighter fluid because it's water-based, not fucking kerosene. My God. Hi, Ian. How are you? It's nice to see you on here. Ian's from Down Under. And also, just to let you guys know, if you are looking to spice up your life in the bedroom, possibly with your significant other or two, or your mistress or whatever, go ahead and go on over to adamandeve.com. That's adamandeve.com. Put in the code CrazyTrain. That's crazy with a K. And you'll get 50% off of most items and a bunch of goodies. Like, who doesn't like free stuff? And up to 50% off of most items. I think that's pretty fair. And like I said, it's adamandeve.com to spice up your life in the bedroom or the basement or your tool shack or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so hi, Tim. How are you? I have not seen you in a while. Okay. What's that, like last week? Yeah. I want to thank everyone for watching the restreams. That's really helping us. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, which is just YouTube. Subscribe to my channel here. Make sure you check out my podcast every Wednesday on iTunes, which is Crazy Train with moi, Jasmine St. Clair. I'm still unwinding from the weekend. Doing 2 wrestling shows back to back in this heat was unreal. And I have to say, the H2O Center, I thought it would smell like swamp ass or something, and it did not. It was totally fine. It was such an intimate environment to be around. And my highlight of being at the H2O Center, which is super well run because Matt Tremont really knows how to run a tight shift and has a great group of people working there. But my favorite character of the evening was this character named Sullivan. Okay. Sullivan's really cute. He's all black with 4 legs and he's a dog. Yeah, he was a lot of fun. He was hanging out in the dressing room. Thank you very much, Paul, for coming on in. So my guest today, or this evening, I should say, a lot of you have seen her wrestle before. Some of you have stalked her as she's walking and doing her thing. And she's gorgeous. I saw her in my other friend's podcast on Wrestle Death 101. And I think she's been around the scene for a pretty substantial amount of time. But, you know, I always see her videos pop up and her photos. I see her getting involved in a lot of conversations on certain message boards. And obviously it shows. I mean, deathmatch wrestling with women, it's no joke. And even when you're standing there as like a manager and doing stuff, that stuff's horrible. Like when that fire spot went bad this weekend, I was not too far from where North Korean assassin was. That was not cool. Like that, not even having the proper fire extinguisher right there, or like getting there quicker to the ring, or water. And thanks again to Justin Valencia to having me on X Brand Wrestling, because that was so much fun to do. I'd never been to an outdoor show before. It was my very first one. I was a total virgin, but I had a blast, and I loved meeting everyone there. So with that said, without further ado, I'm going to bring in the gorgeous Angel Metro. Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, you're all made up. I'm like so undone today because of this heat. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it's been hot this week for sure.
I don't know how you do it. Like, you go out to the ring, right? I've seen you at a bunch of the outdoor shows. How do you do it in this heat? It's like, what's your secret to like staying looking fabulous?
Definitely touch-ups on my makeup after my match, putting my hair up if we're outdoors, little things like that. Simple.
Well, what got you started with death matches? Because that's an unusual thing for a lot of girls.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a niche market for women. My former partner was a deathmatch wrestler, and he'd done it for many, many years. And so that's kind of how I got plugged into the scene. I was a musician before I had wrestled. And he passed away suddenly. So when that happened, that kind of just changed everything in my life. And that's kind of how I got into wrestling, kind of carrying the torch a little bit. So I was already a big fan of deathmatch and hardcore and, all of that. So it's just been a natural progression for me as I go on in my wrestling career.
Now, what did you play, or were you singing in music?
Yeah, I sang, I played keyboards, a little bit of bass, stuff like that. Like very much dark 80s electronic influence stuff.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Anything from the 80s, I love, because it takes me back to like mullets, Old Spice. What else? Wine coolers, things like that. Probably like way before your time though. But that's a lot of fun. What do you think is the weirdest experience you've had with a fan? And I'm sure you get all kinds of creepy guys that say things or even like try to grab you. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. I've had fans grab me. I've had fans, thankfully I turned away, but like go in to kiss me and like get me on the cheek because I like sold it. Yeah, people that will like come in like for a photo and then they won't let you go when you're like trying to leave. Like it can be very uncomfortable. I usually don't attend shows or go out in the crowd too much, especially if I'm unfamiliar with the promotion by myself. I usually have someone with me.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I never thought of it like that. And some places I've worked, it's just you're so close to the fans and you don't really think about them trying to do something ridiculous. You think they have better manners sometimes, and it doesn't always work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's a different perspective for them. Yeah.
Or just bad manners or something, no big deal.
That too.
Yeah, now and again. Now tell me about the Hellraiser box on your hand. I heard about this tattoo from one of your biggest fans, and he's like in love with the tattoo. So yes.
Yeah. I have the Lament Configuration box on my hand. I'm a big horror movie fan. And that was one of the early ones I watched as a kid. I also have like a half sleeve. It's like the original Evil Dead poster. Yeah, I'm just a big horror movie fan. So as I work my way through my arms and stuff, it just add to it. Mm-hmm.
God, you're seriously brave, because I had enough. I had lots of problems on my wrist getting a tattoo done. This one was like the most painful one, I think. It's a Sepultura tattoo. It's like the most Brazilian tattoo I think you could have. But this thing hurts so bad on my wrist. It was the worst ever. I don't know what it is with hot chicks and horror flicks. Like, what would you say your top 3 horror movies are?
My top horror movies? Yeah. Well, obviously, like the first Evil Dead movie, since I have it tattooed. Hellraiser as well. As a kid coming up, I mean, I liked all the classics. Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, like Candyman is really popular now. Yeah, a lot of that and a ton of B movies too. So
Trauma?
Yeah. Well, I didn't get into Trauma till later. Like I would say in my late teens, but yeah, Trauma's good. There's a lot of good stuff in Trauma.
I didn't get into B movies until I was, I think, like 19 years old. I went to the very first horror convention in Rutherford. Horror, what is it called? Chiller, yeah. And I
That's
met John
awesome.
Russo there. Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
they put me in this B movie, but he used a totally different name when he was directing it.
Mhm.
And it was just cool, like the whole experience and everything like that. But I like trauma films. My favorite one was Savage Abduction. It was about two guys in a bike club, and they abduct these girls and try to sell them into to these rich guys. The girls end up kicking their asses.
Awesome.
Yeah, one of
Very
my
cool.
favorites of all time, I think.
Mhm.
What kind of music do you like, or what inspires you musically? Like when
Um,
you
I listen to all kinds of music, but usually it's music that has like a dark spin on it. My entrance theme is by the Misfits, so obviously like a lot of punk and horror gothic influence. Liking scary movies, that's gonna come with it. But I pretty much listen to anything. I like a lot of vintage music too. Like my first musical like love as like a kid was Elvis, so I got into a lot of like rockabilly, like 40s through 60s music, and then as I started becoming a teenager, I got into like the Vietnam era pretty heavy. So yeah, I listen to pretty much every genre though.
That's fun. I like the Misfits, Danzig, things like that. Did you ever get into Danzig at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone that likes the Misfits have listened to Danzig as well. It like kind of goes back to back. But yeah, I mean, I'm not as big of a metal fan, I'd say, as I am punk. But I mean, I definitely listen to metal. Like I've seen Iron Maiden quite a few times and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's like a must listen to, I think, for anyone that's getting into metal or even at least has some minute contact with metal at some point. So what goes
Mhm.
into a day in the life of Angel Metro when she's like not wrestling, like the fun part of the day or the even the tedious stuff? Like I think working out's tedious, so that's my tedious part of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like pretty much everything's getting thrown into wrestling right now because I'm just like on that grind. But obviously, big like movie fan. I love watching stuff. I love watching documentaries, things like that. I'm really into like podcasts and audiobooks as well on like all different topics. Um, I really like history and stuff too, so I'll veg out on that. I like going to the gym when I like have the time to just be able to go and like, relax and go work out and stuff. That's nice. Um, yeah, I'm a pretty simple person, honestly. Like as much as crazy stuff as I do in wrestling, like my downtime is quite literally downtime. Like I just chill. I live in Virginia, so I'm like in the woods and yeah, it's nice. You're kind of just entertained by having the woods all around you. I'm like about 10 minutes out from the city though. So we have like we have a movie theater here called Alamo Draft House. It's kind of like a fun gimmicky theater, and you can like they have like recliner chairs, and you can like order food and like eat while you're watching the movies, and they do like $2 Tuesday, like they'll show like trauma type films and stuff like that, and it's cool. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it though. Yeah, very basic.
So when you're saying documentaries, is there anything specific that you're watching right now on Netflix? Because there's so many great things coming out, like these really dark, creepy documentaries of like cults,
Yeah.
serial killers in India.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few of all of that. I've kind of faded away from Netflix. I've been using a app called Tubi a lot lately,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
a free service. It's like Netflix, but it has a lot more versatility and a lot more like independent like films as far as documentaries and stuff, and they also have like main budget films. There's actually a really cool documentary I've been turning people on to. It's about Kane Hodder's life, and he is a stuntman and an actor. He plays Jason Voorhees. He's like the most prominent actor is Jason Voorhees, but he started out as a stuntman, and so it kind of just follows his journey like through that into acting and all that. I don't know. It's really cool. Like I like seeing that kind of stuff behind the scenes, and even though that kind of stuff is like way different than like wrestling, you always like kind of see parallels in different entertainments where they kind of like you find similarities. So I think it's cool.
So I've met him a few times at conventions because I've done a handful of those. What's the name of the documentary again? Because I do want to find it.
I don't know. I just know it's Kane Hodder's. I think it has his name in the title, but if it's on the Tubi app, it's TUBI. It's free. You can just go on the website or like put it on your TV as an app and just type in Kane's name and it'll pop up. So yeah, I'm not great on like titles off the top of my head.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm gonna definitely look out for that because he's a very interesting character. I think every photo I have with him, he's always strangling me or choking me.
Yeah, they actually talk about that in the documentary towards the end, how he's like notorious for it. It's good. I like it.
It's To Hell and Back is what someone just told me in the chat. So it's called To Hell and Back.
Okay.
So
of course.
Yeah.
You chat person.
Tom's also another writer. He likes all kinds of interesting things, including hitmen and the weird characters. I've had an array of people on here. Like on the live stream, it gets crazy sometimes. We had John Wayne Bobbitt on one night, and that went really like woo-hoo, like off the rails.
Right on.
It was like him, his brother-in-law, the sister. Like next thing you know, they're all in the chats. I'm like, okay, guys, this is like too much. So I had to take a breather. What's that in the background?
Which?
Is it a face?
Here.
That way, over your left.
There?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a picture of me and my former partner. So just, still up there on the wall.
This is like not my normal setup. I'm in New York City right now. So this is from the apartment. It's all these like weird ornaments and things like that from all over the world. They just kind of fit there. They live there right now. So with the Deathmatch Wrestling, do you get a lot of girls that come up to you that try to get advice from you that want to do this? Because it is such a ferocious thing. I've seen some like serious accidents and injuries with people of both sexes.
Yeah. You're talking about like women coming up and asking about it?
Yeah. Do they ever ask you about it? Do you give them advice? Like, don't do it, or just be careful?
I mean, like I've been around the deathmatch scene for a little bit. I've just started getting my feet wet as I've gotten more experience at actually like working more with them. Yeah, I mean, I guess women do like come up and ask. I feel like that's more like wrestling in general, especially like living somewhere like in the South where intergender matches are still taboo for some reason.
Really?
So wrestling in general. Yeah, with the deathmatch stuff, I do get asked here and there, but mostly I think it's one of those things where women are so like programmed to like be like, oh, I can't, like, even if they would otherwise be like interested in it, they're like, oh, I just can't even think about it because it's so like crazy. But every once in a while I get someone like actually my tag partner Riley Crow, we met last, like going into last year, like January. It was that the December before, and she was really cool and stuff. I was like, man, I want to tag with her, like. And so we ended up doing that, but she just started getting her feet wet a little bit more into like working with glass and like color and things like that. So yeah, I think it just takes a particular type of person. Women come here and there. I think it's mostly like when women ask, it's like they always want to do something to someone, right? They're like, oh, I want to hit this guy with this, or I want to bust tubes like on this guy, and like want to do that. And some guys will, they'll let it happen. Like, I'm like, all right, go ask him, see if he is down with that. For me personally, I think you need to like kind of take things like that before you give them to other people, but they don't understand that. So yeah, I just kind of, I'm like, go ask the person you want to do it to. Like, that's not really my say.
Yeah, I mean, there's some brutal stuff out there. The first time I threw a fireball at someone, it was in, I think, the late 90s. And, I think back to that day because I was doing fire eating for quite some time. And I worked as a magician's assistant at one point in my adult life. So I was very familiar with it already. But to just throw like kerosene or whatever and not know what the rules of fire are, you have to be super careful because you're trusting someone else with your life. I get scared to hit people with canes. Now, it's like I don't like doing it. It's really like, I don't know. I feel bad. And then some guys want it really bad. It's like, dude, you pay me extra. I'll do it like super hard. It's no problem. What do you think?
It's usually, I was gonna say it's usually cheaper than a dominatrix for them. So if they are asking for it, like just do it. Just nail them.
Yeah, baby, no problem. Woo!
Yeah, you
It
got
makes a good sound effect, like at the H2O arena. Did you ever work at H2O?
I haven't. I'm really good friends with Matt and Chrissy, but I haven't worked there yet. So I'm saving that one. That's like one of my special venues that I'm not going to work until I'm at a certain point in my wrestling. Yeah, so eventually, but not yet.
They're really nice people, and I love their dog. I don't know if Sullivan was their dog, but I love the dog. He was like the coolest thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imagine just letting him run out to the ring. Like he could manage someone. So what is something you don't think you take? Because I've seen people with weed whackers. I've seen them with the light tubes. What's the one thing you don't think you do or you would not take from someone?
Probably wouldn't take too many staples to the head. And probably scissor board. That one is real easy to, and I'm so little, I don't have a lot of cushioning. So if it goes in wrong, it's probably going to come out the other side pretty quick. So I think scissor boards, they can be unpredictable. And then, I mean, like, obviously, like pigeon spikes and stuff like that, right? Like crazy. Oh, and Pondo says, like, the pencil, like, don't do the pencil spot. So can't do the pencil spot because Pondo, I mean, I believe him, but I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, there's not a ton that I wouldn't, like, be interested in. It's just ones that might be a little bit too unpredictable for my skill level, or if my body size is too small. Because, you know, some of the deathmatch guys are bigger, so they got a little bit more cushioning. They can have things go in a little bit deeper and stuff. But, like, being smaller, like, if I get even, you know, average scissor length is, like, what, like that? So even, like, that much through, I mean, that's like pretty much through my arm or my back, you know, into my lung or whatever. So yeah, I try to be somewhat responsible with it, knowing my size.
Well, how tall are you?
I'm 5'5". I'm not super short, but I'm not like the tallest person either. I'm not like Sawyer Wreck or something.
I'm like, oh God, what is she, like 10 feet tall? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think she's like 5'10", but I don't know.
Yeah.
She always looks taller than that.
Well, wait, if you don't mind my asking, like, what do you weigh, like 100 pounds or something?
No, I'm like, I alternate depending on the time of year between like 135 and 140. It just depends on like the time of year. Because I can cut weight, obviously, like especially in the South and stuff, you get a lot leaner in the summer just because it's so humid and like hot. Everything you do is like a workout. Yeah. So I'm not super skinny either, but you know, I noticed like when I first started training and wrestling and stuff too, like you really start getting like body awareness as you're learning. And like, as I started taking a few body slams and getting over the initial shock of what that's like, and I started paying attention to my body, I realized like how close, like when I'd hit the impact, how close my bones were to the mat. You know what I mean? Because like you don't have like the guys have like more muscle mass usually back there, and I try to work it out, but you know, it is what it is. And, you know, not as much like fat mass either. So I was like, I realized like how much of an impact that was of my bones, like hitting. And so I started being more aware of stuff like that, where I was like, okay, like I may think I'm like 6'4", you know, like 280 in my head. My attitude might be that, but you know, let's work with my size and like, just be aware of that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that till you brought it up. I should really think about that more with the bones and everything like that.
I actually ask vets every once in a while because I'm like, what's worse for you? Like, do you think it's like being a bigger because obviously like when you're a bigger person, you have all that body mass and stuff. So all that weight coming down, that's impact. But then when you're tiny, it's like you don't have the cushioning on like your skeletal frame. So I'm like, oh, I'm always asking them stupid questions like that. I'm like, which one do you think is worse? They're like, they both suck. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But yeah, I tend to think about stuff like that.
I got to think about that more. You know, then I see girls like Lindsay Snow. Like, I love Lindsay. She reminds me, she's kind of like you, like Tinkerbell. She's got the Tinkerbell look, which is great, by the way. And she always looks so happy to be running out there to the ring and doing her thing, but she's got implants.
Yeah.
It's going to take that one wrong thing. Like, what happens if you have implants in that? Like, did someone just smash you the wrong way and then it breaks into it? You know, that's like the worst nightmare.
I know back in the day, who was it? It was like Carmen Electra or one of them had one pop. I think nowadays they're just constructed better. I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm going to ask her like her personal business specifically, but I know that they've been constructed better to help lessen that. I'm sure you still have to take precautions, but I mean, so many female workers have implants that they make it work. So I think it's better quality nowadays. And they have like the gel versus like the more liquid stuff now. I'm not super like knowledgeable on it. It's just like casual knowledge, but yeah, I don't know. That would be, I would think that for a lot of like body enhancements, that would be interesting.
Imagine getting a butt enhancement than getting bumped on your ass.
That probably would rule, honestly. Like if you got a butt once it healed, you probably have so much more cushioning that it would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the doctor that. I'm gonna say, hey, if I get the butt implants, what happens like when I fall on them? Like how much longer would I have to wait before I get bumped on my ass? But you know, they probably want the business anyway, so they want them to break.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a plastic surgeon, so I don't have any knowledge on it, but
no, I just speak to them all the time. I always ask questions. So yeah, I'm gonna look into that more often about the bones. I have to start taking that into consideration with my size. And like I have this really bad habit of just forgetting to eat during the day. And it's like super important, you know, people's health.
Especially like as women, like because we tend to suffer from more bone related things throughout our lives, like osteoporosis and stuff like that. I don't know that it matters, but like in my head, I'm always like in here thinking about stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's like a good thing to like be aware of, but it probably doesn't matter.
Who would be your ideal person to work with in the MAC, or like 3 people you'd like to work with that you've not worked with yet?
That I haven't worked with?
Yeah.
Well, me and Murdoch were scheduled to wrestle twice, and the first one he couldn't make, and the second one I couldn't make. So I would like to have that done at some point. One that I think will be happening at some point is Mickey Knuckles. I think that's going to be an awesome one. I'm trying to think of a third. I mean, like if I would probably just throw in like a wrestler that I really like. So it'd be someone crazy like Homicide or like, you know what I mean? Like someone like that like I just like adore. They'd be like, that would be the craziest match. So yeah, I definitely tend to run more in those circles as far as like people I like to work with and like learn from and stuff. So yeah, definitely. You don't really see it a lot in the face, but
yeah,
I like that. I prefer that style.
Yeah, Homicide is cool. He worked for me years ago at 3PW, and I loved his style and the way he treated people. I just saw him this weekend, actually, and it was so weird seeing he didn't even like change like the way he looks or he carries himself. He's so humble and just a lovely person. I'd love to see you work Mickey Knuckles. I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah, it'd be a good one for sure. We've talked about it for, I don't know, maybe even a year now. So it'll come through when it comes through. We're like, you know, I actually, there's a kind of outlaw backyard type promotion that's been doing really well. It's been growing like crazy. It's called POR, and that runs it runs about an hour from me. And so she had a match and I kind of got involved in stuff. So she's got a bit of a receipt coming towards me anyways. So I'm sure it's going to happen at some point.
She's lovely. I've interviewed her before. Plus, I worked with her for a while, and she's really a wonderful person. I love her eye makeup. Yeah. I love POR, by the way. One thing with JJ Allen, I always give him a hard time. Every time I see him, I'm like, hey, buddy, they're towing your home outside somewhere. I give him that type of like heat because it's just this whole backyard thing. I've always teased him. He's like, Jasmine, I own a house. I live in a 2-story house. I'm like, I know, but you just got to go with it just for the optics. But some of the stuff they do, I saw them drive a car into a trailer once. Did you see that?
The assault driver off the trailer. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I can't like get over that. But what's it like working with them?
It's dope. I love it. Like I got to be the first woman to like wrestle there. And, being a person in the deathmatch community before I started wrestling and stuff, like being able to see everyone come through and stuff and say hi to them and like do all that. And it's just fun. It's like a giant junkyard. You've got cars, you've got the bus, it's like the locker room, you know, it's all these weapons. And I don't know. It's just like, I feel like with wrestling, especially when it's, you know, just straight laced shows, nothing like a hardcore deathmatch type vibe. There can be a lot of pressure and competition and just like all of this stuff. And for me personally, like I just really love wrestling. I love doing it. It's fun for me. Like I love learning and like growing my skill set. And so going to a place like POR, you know, one, like I get surrounded by like all of these deathmatch vets who like, I catch a lot of like flack from wrestlers and like up and coming wrestlers about like deathmatch and like hardcore and like, well, why would you want to like, you know, it's that thing where like deathmatch wrestlers can't wrestle, which is total bullshit. But they're like, why would you want to like learn from them? Why would you want to this? And it's like, well, first of all, like good deathmatch wrestlers actually can wrestle really fucking well because they're deathmatch wrestlers, and that's harder than regular wrestling. So they have to be really good at wrestling before they can be really good at deathmatch wrestling. But the way that I look at it, like the way that I approach it is like when you're a vet, you've put in your time, you've grown your skill set to that level, you know, you've had all that experience, and that takes a lot of like time and dedication, physical sacrifice, all of that, right? Like that's all there. With a deathmatch vet, like if they're still around and alive and kicking, they've had to do all of that and then quite literally survive. Like they've had to survive in that ring. I mean, deathmatch wrestling, you know as well as I do, it is so fucking dangerous and can be very unpredictable, just like that. Boom. And there's like a disaster. So for those that are deathmatch vets, the type of mentality, the intelligence, the skill that you would have to get to that level and still be moving and like being able to wrestle, you know, I consider that like a very talented person. So that's why I like to learn, because that's what I want to do. Like if I have to be in a situation where I'm going through all that shit, like I want to know how to survive. I want to be the final girl. Okay. Like I don't want to like have something go haywire. And if anyone knows like how to react in an emergency or when something goes haywire, it's deathmatch wrestlers. So I don't know. And I feel like they get to be a little bit more creative and expressive than the average wrestler. I feel like, regular wrestling kind of has like more of a built-in blueprint depending on what the trends are with the major promotions, whereas deathmatch wrestling, it's more flexible. I mean, there are trends in that too, but you just get to be more creative, and I really like it. So yeah. So POR is awesome because I get to do all that and see all those people and be around them, and you know that helps just doing that. And yeah, less stress. And it's nice too because I was trained in the South. I'm a student from Jimmy Valley School. So that kind of like Southern fried wrestling, like where, you know, you're getting trained like some Southern fried dudes and they're like laying it into you. So like, I'm just used to that style. And so POR is nice because like, I know like we can just go in there and do our thing and have a really good match and stuff. And I'm not going to have to worry about like someone, I don't want to say being like oversensitive, but just like my style will work there no matter what. Like no matter who I'm wrestling, it's gonna be fine. So yeah, I dig that too.
Well, I have two words for you coming from a veteran and just being around Necro Butcher after this last incident and also this whole thing that happened this weekend, which was a horrible accident.
Yeah.
Health insurance.
Right. Yeah.
You know, everyone goes to Japan, they go all over the wrestle. For $35, you could have travel insurance that will cover up to $10,000 or $20,000 of travel insurance and health insurance, all combined. Health insurance, lost luggage, if your flight gets canceled. So I always tell people now, just get the health insurance somehow. It doesn't make a difference. Like Alliance is the company that I went with when I went to Japan. Because I was walking through like about this much of glass in the ring. We came out to the ring after some other match, and I always wear heels. I'm not wearing flats in the ring. I refuse to do that. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't feel too good. I took my shoe off in the back. I had like shards of glass, but I know how to take the stuff out. Did you hear of Shoes Hardcore at all?
Yeah.
Right. So My friend Veronica, guys, she was doing some wrestling before she worked as a manager, and she's also a registered nurse. So she has like these little DIY kits for wrestlers, like deathmatch wrestlers specifically, such as yourself, that go out there and need the gauze or need little pliers or whatever it is to help those injuries.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I learned was how to stitch up someone with their hair.
Oh, that's cool.
That was Sabu that showed that to me like years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I get squeamish around blood, by the way. So don't ask me like what I'm doing by the way. You can get like people's blood on you or pieces of like skin. So I sold a pair of fishnets a while back. I don't know if you remember this. It had blood on the fishnets. And there's dangling skin. And someone bought it from me. Some guy in like Europe. I'm like, yeah, okay, let me just Ziploc this. Do you want Slack to sign them as well? Because it's his flesh in there. Oh, no, it's good. Yep. What was the most holy shit moment to date that you've had where you were afraid it was like life or death or something could go terribly wrong? Have you had that moment?
For me? Holy shit moment? I don't know. I've been pretty lucky, honestly. Like, I try to be smart about things and not be too big for my britches and go past, like, I'm pretty self-aware as far as like my experience level and where I'm at. So I try not to go like too crazy outside of that. I guess for everyone, like their holy shit moment for my wrestling career is probably the stop sign with Pondo, because the nose injury was just crazy. Like everyone was like, holy shit. So that for me personally wasn't too bad. Like I was already cracking jokes by the time I got back to the locker room, but everyone was just, because it was all fucking bloody and all over the place. I mean, it happens. What are you gonna do? Yeah, I think that was probably like the craziest one. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've had other injuries too, you know, where I've gotten cut up pretty good and stuff like that, but I haven't had anything like, I haven't had any broken bones. I haven't really had any like deep cuts even. Like, I mean, I've got scars, but they're not like hemorrhage, you know, type deep or anything like that. Like, yeah, I've definitely been like really lucky in that regard. You know, I've had like minor accidents as far as just like regular wrestling and stuff where things go wrong, but I've not gotten hurt. So I'd probably say the stop sign is probably the most outlandish thing I've had so far. Yeah.
Oh my God, that stop sign. I was struggling with it. That thing is so heavy. Oh, he had it with him. He's like, here. I'm like, okay. Oh, it weighed me down. But the one in California, when we had that was like from the promoter. That was a nice light one. I'm like, okay, that I could do. So did he just like smack you in the head with that? Your forehead? Like, where did he hit you?
Yeah, it was he sabued it. It was just a series of unfortunate events. Like it was just perfect timing for like a bunch of like little things on like my side and his side. Like I love Pondo. Like I don't like, that's my dude. Like I love him to death. Like I don't hold it against him at all. Like no, that was on both of us, and a lot on me because I was new. So like, you know, what I should have done was put my fucking hand up when it came through, but I was like, nah, it's the first time I'm taking the stop sign. I'm going to take it straight to the dome. Like I was like trying to be a little badass. And it just was a little bit too early with my, when I hit the ropes, and then on the return, it was just like a split second timing thing. And then because it was one of his older ones, I'm sure you've probably noticed the older ones start to like get concave instead of flat. They'll like dome. And so because the timing was like a split second, like off, it like kind of basically just like sheared off my nose bone into my nose. Oh. And then it stopped, like, I don't know if you can see it, but it stopped at I had my nose pierced on both sides. Thankfully, I probably wouldn't have a nose, but like, it stopped like from nose ring to nose ring. It's like nose ring off the bone, nose ring. And it cut all the way through too, which was crazy because I'd never had something like that happen where it like cut through the other side, like on a appendage like that. But yeah, it was just a series of like just like little things. And it was fine though. I mean, we finished the match and I didn't go. We were in it was Shane Mercer's promotion. So afterwards, he's like, "Oh man, like you should, like you should really go get that stitched up." I was like, "Nah." I was like, "It's Pondo's birthday. Like we'll just go to CVS and I'll just like pack it. It would be fine." And then the next morning, it was still kind of bleeding a little bit. And Mercer's like, "You know, you should really go get that stitch." But my brother was with me, and he had told me, like, we found on the way back that, like, there's a museum in Kentucky on our route back that had, like, the real life cocaine bear in it. I was like, nah, dude, like, I'm not going to the hospital. Like, I got to go check out Cocaine Bear on the way back.
Wait a second.
So it never happened.
He was real? Cocaine Bear was real.
Yeah, it's a real bear. Like, they had, like, a drug drop or whatever, and they had to, like,
Yeah.
I guess, bail their supply, and, like, a real bear, female bear, little one, came and, like, ate all the shit, and they found it dead. It wasn't as exciting as the movie, but they have it, and they have it stuffed, and it's in a museum in Kentucky. I don't remember the city, but I saw it, and it's awesome. They've got, like, a little disco ball in there, play music, bunch of cocaine paraphernalia, a bunch of, like, gag gifts and stuff. It's, I don't know, it was really cool. It was worth it. Yeah. And, I mean, there's not much you can do for the note. Like, looking at it now, I was like, oh, it probably would have helped, like, maybe cleaner line, you know, as far as the scar, and, like, my septum's deviated. It was a little bit before because I had broken my nose as a kid, but it's a little bit more now, so it might have helped with that. But it's like, it's fine. The scar hit in a good way. I was like, I don't really care. Like, everyone else was kind of freaking out more than me as far as that stuff goes. So I was like, I don't really care. They're like, oh God, it's gonna scar. I'm like, I don't give a shit, dude. Like, it's fine. It's cool. But yeah.
Yeah, it's usually worse looking at it because you really get concerned. So yesterday when I was ringside and that whole fire incident happened, I was freaking out, like, even afterwards. So I go to the back and Danny DeMonto's like, you fucked up his back really bad. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, it was a fire. He's like, no, that was you. You scraped up his back with that cane. So I'm asking him, I said, he's like, no, it's the fire. So
yeah,
then
I mean,
today he's like cooking. He's baking. Yeah, Danny's messing with me.
Yeah, he's ribbing you. Yeah, no, that was crazy. I saw the video of that. I was actually in somewhere doing a show up north. Scranton. And then I stopped at XPW real quick because, yeah, that was happening in Newark. But, yeah, so I saw the video a little bit later than everyone else. But, yeah, I mean, it was just like, that guy's a trooper. I don't think I've ever met him. But, yeah, it was going off. A lot of the POR guys. Baking. Yeah, a lot of the POR guys were there, and they were telling me about it. It's just like, I'm just glad. Honestly, my biggest concern, like, I'm not an expert. I'm not a stunt person, and I'm not, like, an expert fire worker or anything like that. My biggest concern was I couldn't see if it was a button down or not, but the way he took it off over his head, I was worried that he might have breathed it in. So they said that he didn't, which I'm grateful for him, because I know how dangerous that can be. But that was, like, my big thing, because, like, the skin, and he's a bigger dude too. I'm sure it hurts like hell and it sucks, and you got the risk of infection and all that. But he's lucky he's a bigger dude and all that. But I was worried about pulling the flame up that he might have breathed it in. That was my big thing, because that's a lot harder to heal from. It's a lot more dangerous. But seems like he's doing all right. That guy's a trooper.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him and see if I can, like, try his eggplant parmesan or something, because that's what it looked like he was baking tonight. That's like the last thing I'd want to be around is like fire or a stove if I was burnt the night before. So.
You know, it's weird with, like, a lot of the people that get bad injuries, like the Keen Hodder documentary is the same way. JJ Escobar is the same way. Like, all these people with, like, really bad fire injuries, they're, like, fine with fire. You think you'd be totally freaked out and not want to be around fire, but I don't know. Maybe it's such a, like, core element, like, in human life, with, like, we're like, fire is, like, the thing, right? That's, like, the one, like, big thing that I guess you don't get afraid of it. I don't know. If I ever get, like, 30% of my body or more, like, burnt up, I'll let you know if I'm afraid of fire afterwards.
Yeah, call me after and let me know. I mean, that's, like, it's unpredictable, the fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very scary thing, and, you know, it's an interesting trend not a trend, but a very interesting correlation always between death matches, horror films, and all the blood and gore. Would you ever want to be in, like, a horror film, or did you do one ever?
Yeah, I've done a couple. We have a production company in town. They're friends of mine, but they did the remake for Plan 9 from Outer Space. So they do, like, a lot of independent, like, you know, films and stuff like that. So I did a few things for them. Actually, when I was looking at going back to college, I was trying to decide between going to Berklee College of Music for music and Tom Savini's Monster Makeup School. I was like, oh man, that would be really cool. So I was like this on it, but I was like, I can't really get financial aid for like the monster makeup school. So I'll just like go be a musician. So I did that. But yeah, I was like, really, yeah. I love that stuff for sure.
I love Tom. He worked with me on a film years ago. I'm always fascinated by all the monster makeup because there are people who are so good at it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then there are people that are really bad. Now, I told someone about the blackout experience. Did you ever go to blackout?
I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
No. Is it like it's not wrestling, it's horror related? Mm-mm.
Yeah. So it was this horror, like a walk through house, but it's more psychological terror. Like they
Oh, was it
waterboarded.
like really like the waiver one that was different? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not really good with names, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. So you were like a part of it, like on the staff, or you just did it?
Oh no, some jackass took me there on a date and he wanted to know why I didn't want to call him after and why I walked off and like
What? Crazy.
yeah, I was scared. But the makeup there, they do it, it's so realistic, you know, and it's amazing. It's a really good skill set. It's a shame they don't have aid for that. I think they should have financial aid or like, guys, you know, we'll go fund me and put it together and help her out with this because I think you'd be really good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stick to one thing at a time, so I'm like all geared up in wrestling right now. But if I ever circle back to it, then yeah, that'd be cool. Practical effects are where it's at. I'm so glad that it's having a little bit of a resurgence because CG kind of fucked everything up for a little bit. So I'm all about the practical effects.
Now, what promotions have you worked for so far aside from POR?
I've worked a lot of promotions. I currently hold the belt at Warriors of Wrestling in New York, their women's belt.
Yep.
Short Star Wrestling, when that was running, I still hold their women's belt. I was working, ICS in West Virginia when that was running. Worked RCW in Ohio, which is Ricky Shane Page's promotion that he started last year. I've worked Neo Pro in Ohio. Yeah, I've worked like a lot of in that area, like these like 11 states. I've worked a lot of promotions, so I probably won't be able to name like all of them off the top of my head, but I've gotten around a little bit.
So Ricky Shane, I didn't know he had a promotion. What RCW is that?
RCW. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's so he like back in his like well, I don't want to tell his story for him, but back in his younger days, like him and his friends had more of like kind of a backyardy type DIY. It was Ruthless Championship Wrestling, and so now with his friends nowadays, like 20 plus years later, hopefully that's about right. Hopefully I didn't get that too wrong. But now they're all back, and like so he like kind of honestly my easiest description for it, like how I like to describe it in a nutshell, is it's like NXT for the indies.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
like, yeah, that's how he kind of, I don't know. It's a crude way of describing it, but like that's kind of how it's modeled. But it's really cool. Like, yeah, it's a really fun one to work for as well.
Is it Ruthless Pro Wrestling or Ruthless Champ?
It's Ruthless Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
I know it's hard because you got RCW and then you got RPW, who's also fucking awesome. Shout out to them. But yeah, it's like the Ruthless, but it's Ruthless Pro Wrestling, and then Ruthless Championship Wrestling is Ricky's.
Every time I see him, I think of like a Ken doll or like a G.I. Joe whenever I see Ricky, whenever I see him. So yeah, he's really talented. A lot of those guys are, and I think a lot of people don't understand deathmatch wrestlers. A lot of them know how to wrestle, then you just throw in the light tube as a little extra thing here and there. Do you think there's such a thing as overdoing death matches? Like not overdoing death matches, sorry, let me rephrase that. Do you think there's such a thing as overdoing it in deathmatch wrestling by throwing in too many things?
I think there's very much the possibility of overdoing gimmicks in deathmatch. And yes, adding too much in, but it's kind of the same as like a regular wrestling match. When you're green and you don't know what you're doing and you want to get all this shit in, and it's like you don't really got to do all this stuff, and it just makes it like a clusterfuck anyways. It's I think it's probably, you know, I don't really see the vets doing that. It's just more inexperienced people who maybe don't have a lot of time under the belt or don't have a lot of experience with deathmatch, and they're doing it's like their first one or two, you know, whatever. So yeah, I don't think you can overdo deathmatch. I mean, but I love deathmatch, but I think you can definitely overdo gimmicks. And I think the thing that gets the biggest like overlooked, which it does often in regular wrestling too, is there's like psychology to and people don't realize. They're just like, go in and hit this shit, do that. And it's like, but that doesn't fucking like that doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, and you can see it. Maybe not like the average person who's like a casual wrestling fan, but for people that watch it often, you can definitely tell the difference like pretty much off the bat. So yeah, I think you can definitely overdo gimmicks, and I think what I see a lot with like smaller promotions and like some backyard promotions and stuff is they compensate for either not having a lot of skill yet or like move sets yet. They compensate by like throwing shit in and beating the shit out of each other. And for me, like my ideal death match is a wrestling match, and the death match enhances the wrestling match. So you still have the wrestling and you have the story, and the death match and the weapons and all that enhances it. You're not relying on the gore and the weapons as a crutch to carry the match over. And that's I mean, again, this is my own personal opinion. I don't really have room to talk about anything, but I think that's the big difference is people often will rely on the gimmicks, the weapons, the color, all this to like carry the match. And it's like, no, dude, those are like the seasonings for your match. Like you need to have a fucking wrestling match. And I think that's why you like, you know, people get played out on and like tired of deathmatch, quote unquote deathmatch, because they see so many of those kinds of matches. Take it with a grain of salt, though. It's my personal opinion. Don't come at me, whoever watches this.
No, it's true. And you said it. You said it perfectly right, by the way, because I always say that. You have people doing big moves for the sake of doing big moves. If your knee is like injured in the match or you do some move to mess up someone's knee, sell the knee. Tell the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Don't go putting too much paprika and salt and all these other seasonings on it. That's so like, oh my God, I can't believe it. That's like almost like a recipe. So you have the base, you have all the ingredients of the match. Okay, guys, this is it. You put the ingredients of the main course in the oven, then you add the seasonings and everything on top of it. And that is how you do the perfect death match. Yes. Oh my God, I'm so excited now. I'm gonna keep alluding to this. I got obsessed with things like, you know, Joe Beasler and his friend Rich, right?
Yeah.
I thought so, especially Joe, you'd know. But I always get these like, I get obsessed with things sometimes for like a day or a week or two. Like the Cadbury Easter egg guy, that was an obsession for like a month. And I'm used to be so happy. Did you hear the Cadbury Easter egg story? I was at WrestleCon this year, and some jackass at the bar, he heard me talking about Cadbury Easter eggs with someone because I love Cadbury Easter eggs. I legit do. He told me he likes to break them and jack off with them.
That's so like, what are the like odds of that particular guy being at that bar during that conversation? That's got to be like pretty astronomical. But
well,
yeah,
he came out the table and he brought me Cadbury Easter eggs.
Word.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I could have taken the eggs, but
I took them, but I didn't want to have them in case he like did something to them.
Yeah, that's what I would be worried about. That's nice of him to do it though, but I mean, is that how you started out the conversation? Like you hadn't talked to him previously? You just like kind of broke in with that? Was this icebreaker? Or were you having
came over for a photo. He came over for a photo.
That's still a little like forward. But
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I do like crazy pickup lines though.
Yeah.
Like, hey, hello, future restraining order or something like that. That's kind of cool. Because I have this thing. My theory is everyone has a chance with everyone in this world unless there's a restraining order out there against you.
Okay.
Sometimes it just depends on who it is and if they're cute or not. But yeah, so that was the Cadbury Easter egg guy. So then days later, he posted the photo of us on Instagram. Someone told me that this guy was like arrested in Vegas for like pleasuring himself underneath a blackjack table and sent me the news article.
And this is why I would not accept the eggs.
Exactly. See? Do you do OnlyFans at all?
I know I have a Patreon page where I have like boudoir photography and like gifts and stuff like that, but I don't have like any fully nude or like actual like sexual acts, sex work type content, but I have like private content on Patreon.
Yeah. So what's your Patreon?
It's patreon.com/angelmetro-wrestling.
Okay, guys, so go over to patreon.com/Angel Metro Wrestling, and I will post the link later tonight. What about your Instagram and Twitter? Or are you just like a Facebook type of person?
No, I have all the socials. I'm on Twitter a lot more than anything these days, but Angel Metro on Instagram, Facebook, Metro Angel on Twitter. Yeah, you can pretty much just type my name in. It's unique enough that I pop up. So anywhere on the socials, like you can find me. I've got like TikTok and like stuff like that, but I don't really use it a lot. So yeah, but you can connect with me on any of those.
Dude, TikTok is like so time consuming. I deleted it off my phone. I just can't with all these socials and everything. It's so exhausting. It's exhausting to get up, seriously. And to do that is even more exhausting.
Yeah, it's intense. I use TikTok to watch clips, but I get a lot of those on Twitter. That's why I think I'm on Twitter now a lot more. So I like watching cute little like or funny clips or whatever. So that's basically all I use TikTok for. I try to post my own, but like I always forget to. So I'm not great at it.
Yeah, like on Instagram, I suck at this stuff because what I do is I see these little cute AI cats like working out or like cooking food because I'm a cat person. And everyone just like, they're like, you've got to stop posting these cat videos. I send them to my one friend, Ken. I send him that like first thing in the morning to piss him off and start his day off. He's like, this is not how I'm starting my day. See your therapist because cats do not talk on the phone. Cats do not have OnlyFans. It's like, okay, whatever. So it's okay though. That's my advice. Do you have any pets?
I have 2 guinea pigs.
Oh my God, those are so cute. How old are they?
Huh?
How old are they?
21, 3 years. So they're not quite middle-aged yet. Almost there.
Yeah, I had one of those as a kid. I had like a snake as well, but I don't know. I get freaked out by snakes nowadays. So thanks so much for hopping on. And by the way, do you have any appearances coming up? Do you have any type of wrestling, any shows that you're on?
Yeah, so I have Warriors of Wrestling this Saturday in Breezy Point, New York. Okay. And that's for the tag titles. And then I've got POR July 7th. And that's same place, same location. You hit them up for the address. You guys already know the deal. But yeah.
Yeah, JJ's been on here before. So everyone knows JJ. They love JJ. Mm-hmm. And sorry if my sound keeps getting weird. It's like, this is not my normal setup. So this microphone is not my normal mic.
Oh, you're good. No worries. It worked fine.
It's weird looking. Yeah. Okay. So don't forget to catch Angel at what is it? Warriors of Wrestling. Wow.
Yep. Wow.
And also July 7th at POR Wrestling, which is in Virginia, I believe. And everyone knows what the deal is with JJ and how you get a hold of him and how to find out where exactly the show is because it's so secretive. That's secretive. It is what it is. And just bring like ponchos and glasses so you don't like get smashed in the face or anything. Like I get so scared for people sometimes, like the audience members. And make sure you catch Angel Metro Wrestling on Twitter, and she's also on her Patreon page, Patreon,
Patreon.
whatever
Yeah, I
it
think.
is. Okay, yeah.
Now I'm
You guys
second
know the
guessing
link.
myself.
Patreon. Sorry, I'm thinking. You know where my mind is at when I say Patron.
All good.
So I think I'm due for one of those. Yeah. Well, I hope I get to meet you in person one day because I always see you on Facebook, but I don't believe we've ever met in person.
Yeah, I mean it's a small scene. I'm sure it's gonna happen at some point. I'm always up north, so I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point. Definitely.
Yes.
And thanks for having me on, and thanks for whoever's watching. I don't have the chat pulled up, but thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all.
Okay. Stay safe out there, please.
Thank you. You too.
I'll try.
Bye, guys.
And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I know some of you are new here. King Brian, I'm not sure if I've seen you before. Ian, I know you. Niche, I'm not sure what Alec is, but yes. I'm glad to know implants are bulletproof because maybe I'll like invest in bigger ones. Like that's what I'm hoping for sooner than later. But it was a fun weekend. I want to thank X Brand Wrestling again for having me on the show, Justin Valencia, and of course H2O Wrestling, Matt Tremont, which was a lot of fun to work there. He has a super well run production, and also the people, like his students and also the other workers there, are really lovely people. So if you ever get a chance, check out one of their shows. Definitely look up. Oh God, I'm like going a mile a second. I had too much coffee. Okay. Check out Angel Metro. So Angel Metro Wrestling, Warriors of Wrestling this weekend. Then she has July 7th POR, and go to her Patron and support. Takeaways today and from the weekend, right? Thank you, Ian. Takeaways. Okay. Got to be safe out there. And those of you that travel, especially those of you that are wrestlers, man, this is your life. We've seen enough injuries this past year or even this past 6 months. Get your health insurance, whether it's through a shoot job, travel insurance. You know, I just seeing what happened this weekend just made me realize, and having a conversation with North Korea assassin prior to him going outside talking about health insurance, which he does have, by the way. It just makes you realize it's a really important necessity for almost everyone out there. You know, because God knows what happens to you. Let's say you end up in a hospital, like in a foreign country, and you know you don't have insurance. What happens to you then? You know, and it also reminds me, be good to people because karma does come back. That means, you know, always be grateful to those who help you. Remember them. And, you know, don't hold grudges after 20 years on people sometimes. Whether you're like a miserable fat ex, telling promoters not to book someone, you know, people have a lot of baggage in this world. Whether it's being called fish boy when you're a kid because your house smelled like fish, and then you take that on your shoulders years and years later and just take it out on people. You just can't do that. And by the way, did anyone notice how JBL has like a perfect head of hair? Like, how does he do it? You know, I got to get his secrets. Like him and Al Snow, it's got to be something in the water that these guys drink that have such a perfect head of hair. I admire JBL. I think he's one of the JBL could have any hot chick he wants. Like the way he looks, definitely. And I think he's a real badass. Like I admire JBL. I really do. This is not about JBL, guys. It's about someone totally different, and Paul knows who it is. And it's funny because like when you get exes and stuff like that, it's like you have exes from years ago. You don't really give a shit about them. You don't talk about them because they're like trash. Who cares? You know, then fast forward to this March. Oh, that's right. Why would the Blue Meanie bad talk me to a promoter telling him not to book me on shows? Why would he bad talk another veteran in the business from ECW, telling someone not to use him on a show? Who listens to a blob with a small penis? that was called Fish Boy growing up. I would never tell someone not to hire an ex. I would never tell anyone not to hire someone, because that is just a bad thing to do. And it comes back on you somehow tenfold. You know? I think JBL is like JBL of WWE, John Bradshaw. He's like the ultimate example of FAFO, which means fuck around and find out. You know? Things happen to people for a reason. And that's the truth. So you all out there in, internet land or whatever, don't try to blacklist people somehow, because that comes back on you poorly. But one thing I will respect about the Blue Peony is that he did his own dirty bidding. He didn't have anyone else do it for him, because that got stale. But I have respect for someone that does that. So until then, there are great lawyers out there that handle things like this and people like him. And that's the truth. Then there are lovely people out there in the world of wrestling, like Angel Metro, who's a female, who's paying her dues, working, doing her thing. And, they get the logistics of this business and how matches work. And that's a real skill that people don't have these days. And the way she described a match, it is like a real recipe. What Angel said is, all these other things are like the dressings and the seasonings on it. So think of a wrestling match, especially in death matches, as a recipe, or any match, right? You got the psychology of it. The whole match itself is the recipe. So say it's eggplant parmesan, you have your ingredients, which are the parts of the match. You put them together for the actual, grand finale. Then you put the little baubles on it after, like the light tubes and everything like that. That's like the sprinklings on it, the seasonings. Then you put it in the oven and then put it together, and that's your match. Not that all matches are like eggplant parmesan, but anyway. Don't forget to watch a restream for those of you that hopped on live. Follow me on Instagram, The Real Jasmine St. Clair, and on Facebook. And don't forget to log on to Angel Metro's Patreon, Angel Metro Wrestling. Good night, Scott. God bless. Yeah, that was great what JBL did, Paul. Absolutely. Good night, Jamal. Sleep tight, sweet dreams. Next week's guest is April Hunter. Then I'm booking my guest for after that. And don't forget to stay tuned to this week's episode of Crazy Train Podcast. It's Rachel Cavalli on. You might know her from her blue films and stuff like that. Thank you very much, Ben Espinoza. Muchas gracias. Subscribe to the YouTube. And most of all, don't forget, everyone, how we always close out the show. Stay frosty.